The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
6 years ago, when these Liberals formed government, the Prime Minister promised sunny ways and ethical governance. Instead, Canadians got cover-ups and the most corrupt government in our country's history. What's worse is that the Prime Minister is so arrogant that he thinks that he can fool Canadians. His record speaks for itself, but let's give the Prime Minister a chance here. Can he look Canadians straight in the eye and tell them he has been the Prime Minister of good, ethical governance?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, once again, the Conservatives continue to focus on partisan attacks while we remain focused on them. Today, we're going to be voting on emergency supports for Canadians and to help Canadian businesses and our economy recover. We know the Conservative Party opposes the budget and will be voting against those supports. Yesterday, we saw over half of their caucus vote against a bill to ban the harmful practice of conversion therapy. And late last night, we saw their party vote against historic legislation in the fight against climate change. While the Conservative Party focuses on me, we're going to stay focused on what Canadians need, and that is the supports of a strong, progressive government.
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
What Canadians need is an ethical Prime Minister, and they don't have one right now. He's been the Prime Minister of corruption and cover-ups, twice found guilty of breaking ethics laws. He took illegal vacations to Billionaire Island. He interfered in the criminal prosecution of his friends at SNC-Lavalin, did everything he could to give money to his friends at the WE organization, all for his own political gain. Under this government, there's been two sets of rules, one for the Liberals and Liberal insiders, and one for the rest of Canadians. So will the Prime Minister admit that his corruption has failed Canadians and disgraced the office of Prime Minister?
The honourable member for Leeds, the Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, it is unfortunate to see the Conservative Party spewing facts and baseless misinformation and twisting the facts. The fact is, Mr. Speaker, Canadians have had a really difficult year because of this pandemic, but this government and other orders of governments have worked together to support them. I am proud of the work that we've done with provinces right across the country, regardless of partisan allegiance, to deliver for Canadians. We have stayed focused on supporting people through this pandemic and now focused on building back better. While Conservatives make personal attacks, we'll stay focused on Canadians.
Honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
Well, I think Canadians could do what the Prime Minister to spew something. Facts would be a good place to start. And under this Prime Minister, Ottawa has become a backdrop to his ethical breaches. Under this Prime Minister, Ottawa has become an ATM for Liberal insiders. And while Canadians are struggling and being left behind, the circle of insiders close to the Prime Minister line their pockets and are laughing all the way to the bank. These Liberals will always help their friends to jump the queue and to get the inside track. So when will the Prime Minister put the needs of Canadians first instead of the needs of Liberal insiders?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
You know, Mr. Speaker, very few Canadians actually listen much to the Conservative Party of Canada, but it's interesting to hear Conservatives themselves not listen to the Conservative Party of Canada, because they spend half their time explaining to Canadians how this government is spending far too much in supports for workers, for small businesses, for Canadians to recover this economy. And the other time they're saying we're not doing nearly enough to support Canadians through this pandemic. No wonder Canadians wonder what the Conservative Party stands for, because they know what our government stands for having Canadians' backs every step of the way. That's what we've done through this pandemic, and that's what we'll do through this recovery.
Honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
Well, how far he's fallen, Mr. Speaker. In 2015, he said Conservatives were his neighbours and friends. In 2019, more Canadians voted for the Conservative Party than anyone else. But, of course, nobody is listening to the Conservatives. It sounds like this Prime Minister isn't listening to Canadians. But if there's an ethics law that's been broken, this Prime Minister probably had his hands in it. And if there's a contract to be had, he gave it to a Liberal. If Liberal insiders need a bailout, you better believe they're going to get it from this Prime Minister. Conservatives are ready to clean up Ottawa and bring back good, ethical governance. So will the Prime Minister get out of the way and let Conservatives finally secure accountability in Ottawa?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, I was waiting for him to say drain the swamp, but I know that's in the next sentence if we'd only had a few more seconds. Listen, while conservative politicians opt for baseless partisan attacks, our steadfast focus is on delivering for Canadians by getting progressive bills passed. We're getting supports in the budget for Canadians. We're reaching net zero by 2050. We're banning conversion therapy, which half the Conservative caucus voted against, and we're making sure that web giants pay their fair share and support Canadian creators. Unfortunately, the Conservative Party is more interested in partisan attacks and misinformation than on getting the job done for Canadians.
I just want to remind the honourable members in the chamber that I'd like to hear the responses and the questions as well. It's getting a little noisy. I'm having a hard time. So out of respect for everyone who does want to hear, just ask everyone to maybe talk a little bit lower amongst themselves. L'honorable député de